What's going down, degenerates? Guys, we went 3-0. That's right. You heard it. Perfect week. We got the sweep for week 1 of the preseason NFL 2022. Great week. Obviously can't complain, right? We got the over on the Giants and the Patriots. Relatively sweat-free. Went over pretty early in the fourth quarter. We also got the Browns to cover to win. Also, again, pretty sweat-free. The biggest sweat was the Jets covering against the Eagles, or winning against the Eagles, I should say. It's like the plus 1.5, but they had to pull out a last-minute win to get us that one. So we had a little bit of a sweat going, but at the end we get all three of them. What are we gonna say? All right. Well, so with that being said, though, if you've heard my podcast, which is NFL Nuggets, if you're looking for it, Spotify, Apple, all that stuff, anywhere you're at, type in NFL Nuggets, it'll come up. Similar content in that we're kind of going off of like data and analytics and all that kind of stuff, but different picks, some exclusive picks on the podcast, and honestly, earlier content. And that's really, really important throughout the regular season, but even more so during the preseason, and I'm going to show you exactly why in just a second. But before we keep going on that, just let me start off by saying, don't get, too caught up in the hype. Don't buy your own shit here. It's just really, it's a good week to start the season off, to really get the full preseason swing going. 3-0 is great, but it's going to get harder. Numbers are going to get sharper. Teams are going to play differently. Injuries have already happened. They're going to continue to happen. We got to keep grinding. We got to keep looking, keep finding our angles, our spots. Trust the process, obviously, as I'm sure you've heard from just about everyone else. So all that stuff is great, but we need to keep trying. And again, don't overextend. I even put it on Twitter last week. And if you're looking at your screen, this is my Twitter, or one of the pictures we put up on Twitter last week. Don't continue to play. Don't just throw the money out there because you had a couple good games. At the end of the 3-0, we had our wins, everything locked up, I believe, by Saturday night. And there were still games going on Sunday. I'm sorry, ours even ended Friday night, I think is when our last game ended. So there was games Saturday and Sunday that, if you're undisciplined, you could put money on and keep going and keep, trying to win more money. There was one game that I had kind of looked at, which was the Bills game, which they did win that one. There was another game, I can't remember which one it was now, where the over didn't come through. So don't just keep putting money out there because you're getting a couple wins, because what's going to happen is you'll eventually start giving that stuff back. And even if you do still have a winning week, if you put out like 10 plays and you go, let's say 6-4 or something like that, yeah, you won, but you won all of like a unit and a half maybe, and you put out 10 units to win that 1 unit. So minimize the bets, minimize the exposure, and when you're up 3-0, 2-0, whatever it is, take the wins, enjoy the weekend, and just enjoy the rest of the games. Don't feel like you need to put money on it just because you're having a good week, as the number one tip I can give you as someone who's been gambling for a little while now. So with all of that now being said, let's get into some of the plays for this week's preseason games. And that's really all we're going to be doing for this video. Is I have 3 preseason plays for week 2, or the full week 2 of preseason. I'm going to give you those, go over the reasoning for it, give you some information on why you should be looking at the podcast. I will tell you right now that podcast typically is going to go up like Monday mornings. That's something I can make on the drive into wherever I'm going Monday morning, or even like Sunday night sometimes. So those videos are going to come up a little bit earlier. And like I said, in just another minute or two here, we'll kind of go into depth on the timing aspect for the preseason. Lastly, though, I do have some affiliates that are finally signed up, and we'll talk about them for a second here. As of right now, it is 2 different affiliates. One is GT Bets, probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite books that I've been using for quite some time now. The lines are definitely convenient in that they are typically like a kind of a middle ground. And so If you are a little bit late to the party, you don't necessarily want the sharpest book, only because those sharp books are going to move their lines really quickly, which is great if you're there early in the morning. If you're there clicking refresh on the computer at 6 o'clock in the morning, those are the books you want. You want those really sharp early line movements, because you can kind of beat that line movement. If that's not you, if you still, if you're working a 9 to 5, if you have kids, you're doing stuff, you're not sitting by a computer all day, definitely look into GT bets, because their lines are going to move a little bit later in the afternoon, so you have some time to kind of sit there, watch the games, watch the lines, and not feel pressured to throw money in right away, because it looks good right before the line moves. So give them a look. Also though, Bet DSI is the other one that is signed up for right now. Bet DSI is kind of on the later end of the moves. So if I'm saying GT bets is like in the middle of the day, kind of like a middle mover, Bet DSI is definitely a later mover, and I'm not sure why they do that, or maybe it's just like the volume that they get or don't get, but they typically move their lines well after everyone else, which is great. Again, if you're in that category, like I was saying, where you're just not sitting by a computer, where this isn't your 9 to 5 job, because you may see on another book or even on a website somewhere that the line has already moved to, let's say, -3 or +3, but you can still get it at Bet DSI at like +3.5 or even +4. So you get that line with Bet DSI before they move and adjust to the new numbers. So those are the two books that I have signed up for right now for affiliate links, and those will be in the comments area below. So give them a look, guys. Like I said, I don't typically try to sell you guys anything. These are books that I myself use. I feel comfortable in kind of leading you there. The bonuses are good. I will tell you, if you're looking at just strictly the bonuses, it's going to depend on how much you're playing. If you're playing every week and this is something you're going to be doing for the entire season, I would say go ahead and use Bet DSI. They do have 150% bonus. It's, I believe, a 20% rollover or 20 times rollover. It's kind of a high rollover amount, but if you're playing all year long, you're gonna hit that. Honestly, you're gonna probably hit that by like week 5 or 6, so it's not a huge deal. GT Bets has typically 100% bonus, or even like a 50% bonus. Their 50% bonus you can use, I believe it's 2 to 3 times, and it's going to automatically stick on your account. So once you use it, it'll stay there for the next 2 deposits after your initial deposit, and their rollover is like 6 or 8 times depending on what you're doing with them. So much smaller rollover, especially if you're someone who's like, I think I'm just going to do this for the first couple weeks, or maybe I'll lose interest after the first few weeks, or maybe this is just your first year betting and you're not really sure how the whole bonus structure works. First of all, let me know if you're new to betting and you're not really sure what book you're trying to look for, or what you need to look for before you put money in a book, or if you just have questions on maybe getting money out, what you should be looking for before you make a deposit. Let me know. Put it in the comments below. If I don't get to it first, I guarantee you one of the guys that listens to this video, and now we have a couple of every video kind of guys that are watching this, will help you out. Everyone in the comments is super helpful, really considerate, and will tell you kind of what they've learned from their own experiences. And hey, you guys help me out a lot, so thank you for doing that. But lastly, again, like I said, GT Bets, just give them a shot. Look at the links below, see if there's anything you like, see if something fits for you. If not, don't worry about it. So let's go ahead and start the handicapping. This picture here in front of you is just showing you some of the records from the coaches. There's essentially like 5 to 6 teams that are bet on teams for me for the preseason. Those two teams are the Browns and the Jets. Obviously 2 teams that we bet on last week. We won with both of them. The others are the Ravens, the Steelers, the Bills, and the Seahawks. Now, the Bills are kind of low-key preseason team. So they're actually 11-5, or Sean McDermott, I should say, is 11-5 in the preseason. So just doing the quick math on that, it's going to work out to about 69% as far as a winning rate for Sean McDermott with the Bills. So that's of course good. The Browns, a team like I said we just bet on last week, they are actually 4-0, or Kevin Stefanski, I should say, is 4-0 as the head coach of the Browns. The Ravens the Jets with Robert Saleh have improved to 3-0-1. So they're 75% win rate with one tie. So that's, again, really, really good. The Steelers are also going to be up there with Mike Tomlin, typically putting his best foot forward when it comes to preseason. This record here does not include the game from last week, so he's now 36-24, which brings him up to an even 60% as far as a winning rate. The Seahawks are 26-18 now because they lost that game to the Steelers, but again, the Seattle is another bet on team for me for the preseason, and that's pretty much going to wrap it up. The Ravens, I think everybody already knows about the Ravens. It's not a secret anymore. The Ravens are an amazing 43-12 or something crazy like that. Really, really good preseason record. The reason I don't like harping on them too much is because it's not a secret. Everyone knows, the media knows, and once that stuff is kind of out of the bag, it's not really valuable anymore. It's not as valuable, and that's kind of reflected in the lines. I think that they did start off as -4 favorites for this upcoming game against the Cardinals, and I think at this point they're up to -6.5 in most places, which kind of is a good segue to my next spot here. So last week I let you know, especially if you're listening to the podcast, that some of the factors I take into play when it comes to these preseason games are coaching records. Do these coaches give a shit about preseason? Are they trying to win? And I just went over the 5 or 6 coaches that I believe are actually trying to win in the preseason. Most of the other coaches in the NFL don't really give a shit. There are some that are actively trying to not give a shit, and we'll go over those in just a second. But for the most part, we're looking at coaches who want to win and who have winning records and actually care about these teams, kind of their success in the preseason. So the next thing, though, is injuries, as well as kind of looking at the blogs, looking at the websites, and finding out who is going to play in this game. Obviously, preseason is not always the starters playing, and if they do play, it's not always an extended start time. So for the preseason week 2, this has changed because of the now only 3 games in preseason. It used to be 4. They used to use that week 3 as kind of like that dress rehearsal where the starters would play a little bit more. They'd play the first half and kind of get some of those kinks worked out. Last year was the first year that they went to the 3-game preseason, and I can tell you that most of the teams in the NFL used week 2 as their dress rehearsal. Now, some teams used week 3 as their dress rehearsal, and it really showed, but it was very disjointed and kind of hard to bet on and hard to use as any sort of barometer, mainly because there was no real consistency. Nobody came out and said, "Hey guys, we're gonna all use week 2 as the dress rehearsal." So the teams that were using that week 2 as dress rehearsal, playing against teams who thought that it was still week 3, they didn't get the memo, usually just beat the hell out of their opponents. I believe last year it was the Eagles that lost 35-0 in week 2. It's just, if you go back and look at week 2 of last year, you'll see a couple of really big lopsided wins. You know what? I'm just going to pull it up so we can look at it together. So 2021 preseason week 2, if you come through here, sorry, I had to refresh that. So so preseason week 2, 2021, it was the Eagles that lost 35-0. So New England obviously took this as their dress rehearsal. The Eagles did not. The Bills, again, took it as a dress rehearsal. The Bears did not. 41-15. Just obviously not really that great. Same thing again. The Packers are one of those teams that don't give a damn about this preseason at all, under Matt LaFleur, that is, and so they lost 23-14. And again, this is the Jets with Robert Saleh. That was, I believe, his first or second year as head coach. Just again, some teams really care, some teams don't, and some teams use the week 2 as the dress rehearsals. Some teams didn't. The Broncos last year used it. The Seahawks did not, and the Seahawks again were a bet on team, so they clearly were not thinking that week 2 was the preseason dress rehearsal again. So some of this is going to change because some of these teams that maybe didn't look so good last year in week 2, I think finally got that memo or should be playing this week and using their starters like it is the dress rehearsal. So if you go to week 3 and you can kind of tell which teams maybe thought week 3 was still going to be again, the dress rehearsal like it had been previously. You see the Eagles go from scoring 0 points to 31 points. So the Packers, again, not giving a shit with Matt LaFleur about the preseason whatsoever. The Ravens 37 points, so Ravens again really good in preseason, but that they really went all out in that one. Seahawks here 27-0. The Chargers and the Rams are both teams that do not care about preseason whatsoever. Brandon Staley's still sort of on the fence. The Rams, though, with Sean McVay, have a losing record, and it just doesn't even look like he tries, honestly. Mike McCarthy is another coach that, at least while he's been with the Cowboys, has not made any attempt to win in the preseason. Same thing with the Bengals. So, again, a handful of teams, I would say about 5 or 6 teams that just really actively don't care about the preseason, that still have their head coaches that they've had for a while, so we really don't have too many surprises. And it's just, some teams that we can bet against. So, those teams that are fade teams for the preseason: the Falcons, the Bengals, the Lions, the Packers, the Saints, the Chargers, and the Eagles. The Rams are, I'll throw them in there as well. The Rams and the Chiefs. And for them, I believe it's mainly because their rosters are pretty much set. They don't have to, they don't need to leave Justin Herbert out there. They don't need to put Patrick Mahomes out there. They have no need to risk those guys at all. So for the most part, they're just kind of messing around, trying to get some timing stuff down, trying to kind of do some of their fine-tuning stuff. So those two teams, again, just fade them or just stay away from them if you really absolutely, can't do anything else. So that's what we're looking at. And like I said, the blogging part to see what players are going to be out here, what injuries are making an impact, what are coaches thinking, all that stuff really matters for preseason. The problem is the lines move fast and furious during the preseason because everybody's looking for the edge. Everybody's numbers are just so far off. They're so crazy. I'm going to give you a little bit of an example. So this morning, which is Monday the 15th, right? These are 2 bets that I took. The Bills money line over the Broncos at -104. The other one was the Browns +3 against the Eagles at -106. That was not 6 o'clock in the morning. That wasn't 7 o'clock in the morning. That was probably 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning in, let's say, the Central Time Zone, right? Central to East Coast time zone, depending on which bet you're looking at. So those are 2 bets that I got, or 2 wagers that we got earlier this morning. If you look at the lines right now, it's moved pretty drastically, and has not even been a full 24 hours. So the Bills now, instead of being the -104 that I got this morning on the money line, it is now -202. To me, there's no longer value in that. This morning they were -1 at -110 or something like that, or somewhere around there. I think they may have even been a +1, depending on what book you're looking at the -104. Again, the -202, the money line just does not have any value for me. I almost refuse to go over -135 on most of my plays. And in this one, I wouldn't lay the -3.5 here either, only because I'm not really sure what the Broncos want to do. It's kind of a wild card. I know the Bills want to win, and I have a feeling that they will win. They probably will cover the 3.5. So if I had to lean one way, I'm going the Bills. But the Broncos with Nathaniel Hackett, he is coming from the Packers, brain trust. So I'm assuming he probably doesn't really care about preseason either. But maybe he does. He's his own person. Maybe he wants to make a statement. Maybe he's trying to look good for the team. Show that they can score some points. Show that they can hang with a team like the Bills, especially if the Bills put out their starters like a Josh Allen. Maybe he puts a bigger statement out there, right? So maybe he's trying to do that. Maybe he's not. I really couldn't tell you. So at the -104, -106, I think the Bills were great. Now, not so much. I really wouldn't recommend that to anybody. If anything, I would maybe look to go the over on this, because last year the Bills put up 41 points on their own in week 2. I could see another big explosion from them. But again, just not really knowing what you're going to get from the other side of the ball, especially because the Bills punter has looked amazing, right? He's like the punt god. So it's possible the Broncos put up like 10, 14 points, and that's about it. And even if it's like, 31-10 or something like that, you're going to get a push. So, to me, at this point, it's kind of a stay away. So, let's look into some of the other games I wanted to talk about. And so, it is the Eagles-Browns. But before I even get into that, let me show you where the other lines are at here. So, the Bills-Broncos game, and this is on my bookie, was at -3.5 for the Bills, or -202 on the money line, with a 41 over/under. BetDSI, like I said, they are the later movers. They have the Bills as -4.5 with the over/under at 41.5. They don't even have a money line up here, but even to get it down to 3 is a -150. So you're looking, if you really want to take a money line on this, you're probably looking at closer to like a 210, 220. And if you go to GT Bets, again, you see some more variance here. They do also have it at -4.5, so that's going to be the same. They have it at -220 on the money line, and the over/under also at -40 or at 41.5. So definitely some line variance in this one, going from 3.5 to 4.5. You could play some arbitrage if you really absolutely wanted to. I don't see a whole lot of value in it, but it's there if you wanted it. And if you really wanted to play like an arbitrage game, I would probably get the plus 190 with Denver at a place like GT Bets, and then come over here and lay the Bills minus the 3.5. It's not true arbitrage, but that's about as close as you're gonna get. So, anyways, that's just kind of an example of the line moves. And like I said, that's not even a 24-hour time gap. There has not been any huge significant news that's come out. It's not like the Bills came out and said, yeah, Josh Allen's playing like 3 quarters. Nothing like that has come out. So this is just early line moves based on speculation, as well as like coaching grades and things like that. And so you want to get in on these lines as soon as you can. And so while I would love to wait until Thursday, Friday, Saturday to jump in on these and have the blogs and have all the news beat reporters and all that kind of stuff come out and give us all the information we're looking for, it's just not really worth the risk. Finding out that information and getting that extra data point is great, but at the cost of like 100 points, it's just not really worth it to me. Plus, the main aspect here that I go off of is coaching, even in the regular season, and even more so in the preseason. So again, I'm not really going to sit around and wait for that. If you want to, you can, and I'm sure you could find some success just if you look at the right books, if you're shopping around a little bit. But again, for me, I'm jumping ahead of it because I really feel strongly that the coaching is going to be the biggest difference here, not so much like the player personnel going into it. Because even if you get starters, even in week 2, even in a dress rehearsal, you're really looking at like maybe half of the game, and that's about it. So let's go on to the next one, which is Eagles-Browns. Again, this was the other play that I got this morning, and again, just a quick look, we got the Browns at +3, -106. It has now moved down to Browns +2.5 at -110. So again, those lines are already moving, and if we just kind of take a quick look around to see who else has this line up, the Browns +2 at BetDSI, again -110 there as well. And then if we go into GT Bets, we also have the Browns at +2. So +2 to +2.5 is what you're going to get now. The money line anywhere from +115 to really, I guess, just the +110 is going to be about the best that you're going to find. So on that note, I am still going to take the Browns. I'm taking the +2.5 if I had to do it right now. And you may want to look to buy it to the 3 in the preseason. I've noticed that there's the key numbers, and yeah, there's still key numbers, but they're not as key. Now, one thing that has changed just as of last year, previously getting the 1 to 1.5 points was a huge deal, because if it was like 21 to 20 and it was the last play of the game, the team was not going to kick the extra point to go to overtime. They just weren't going to do it. Nobody wants to go to overtime in preseason. They would go for 2, and if they won, they won. If they didn't, they didn't. So the 1.5 points was huge, and I even mentioned that last week. Going through the refs' notes and the updates and all that kind of stuff, they have eliminated overtime in the preseason completely, and that kind of sparked a memory last year that I know that there was a tie because it was the Eagles and the Jets that tied, and they did not go to overtime. So the 1.5 or the 1 or whatever, it is still big because there's a chance of a tie, and they're not going to even go to overtime, but it's not as big as it used to be. Same thing with these other key numbers like the 3 and the 6 and the 7. It's great, but it's preseason, guys. They're going to try different stuff. They're going to try to get their red zone packages in. They're going to try to maybe use some 2-point personnel, kind of see what it looks like. So it's really hard to say that this 3 is going to be huge. If you wanted to buy it to the 3, I don't blame you. The best course of action is to try and get these lines early, like I was saying, so you don't have to buy it up. If you do, great. If not, don't worry about it. So, that being said, though, the Browns, like I said, they are a bet-on team for us. They are 4-0. The Eagles, with Nick Sirianni, are actually 0-3-1. Has not gotten a single win in the preseason, and he doesn't really seem to care that he is or isn't getting a preseason win. He's already been there for a year. The guys know who he is. He's not having to impress his team. There's nobody who's really waiting for him to make a big statement play in the preseason. His main guys know who he is, and the rookies are going to fall in line. So, not really a big reason there. The Browns with Kevin Stefanski, like I said, at 4-0, this guy really takes his preseason football seriously, and more importantly, Deshaun Watson, I know he played like crap last week, but just the fact that he was out there, and he's most likely going to be out there again this week, kind of goes into, if you wanted to buy into the player personnel kind of, loop, you're only going to have him for so long. Let's say he plays for a quarter or even maybe 2 quarters. Last week I was saying, if I were the Browns, if I'm Kevin Stefanski, I'm putting Watson out there as much as I can. I'll let him play the whole damn first half because he's going to be suspended. Get him as many reps as he can. Let him get out there. You're still paying this guy millions and millions and millions of dollars this year, assuming he's not suspended for the full year. And so you want him to at least have something under his belt going into the season when he does get a chance to actually start for you. Secondly, though, you do have Jacoby Brissette. So Jacoby Brissette is a very competent veteran. He's not going to win you games in the regular NFL season. He shouldn't lose them for you either, though. And really, in the preseason, that's what we want. We just want competent veterans that can come in and play a game and take advantage of some of these rookies. So you have 2 great quarterbacks that should play the majority of the game. I would say 2 to 3 quarters. Their backups are also not bad. You have, I would say, 4 to 5 really, really good or solid running backs on the Browns. They lost their center, which, that hurts. But, again, you just have such solid play all the way around for the Browns. I don't really see why they are such big underdogs, especially when they started off at 3. The Eagles, again, I know are good on paper, but going back to what I said with the Chiefs and the Rams, the Eagles are a very highly ranked team this year. Their offensive line is highly ranked. Fantasy-wise, their guys are highly ranked. The running back room is pretty highly ranked. The receivers room is very highly ranked now with A.J. Brown coming in and Devonta Smith still being there. There's not a whole lot of questions with this Eagles team really anywhere. If anything, they may try to get their defense some reps or secondary some reps, but there's just not really a lot of reason for the Eagles to stay with their starters and play their starters any more than they absolutely need to, more so than just to kind of knock the rust off. So if you look at this from a coaching personnel, if you look at this from personnel-wise, if you look at it from any which way, to me, the Browns should not be the dogs here. And even if you wanted to keep them in the dogs, they should not be 3-point dogs in any, mathematical equation you're throwing at me. So, for those reasons, I am taking the Browns, again, plus the 3. Myself, if I had to do it right now, I'm taking the 2.5. Use my bookie, or you find that 2.5 somewhere at the minus 110. Don't overpay for it, but the number is out there, as you can tell. That's game 2. Game 3 on the week is going to be the Steelers and the Jaguars. I am taking the Steelers in this game. With my bookie, they have them at plus 3.5. Bet DSI, let me take a look and see what they have them at. It's also plus 3.5. And GT Bets is also going to have them at 3.5. So it is pretty much minus 110 all the way across. Steelers, Jaguars, pretty similar handicap, honestly, to what we just talked about with the Browns. The Steelers, again, maybe don't have elite talent at quarterback, but they have very competent play with quarterback. Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, those guys are not Super Bowl contenders in my eyes, at least. But even with Pickens back there, Kenny Pickens, he's competent. He looked good, week one, and I would expect him to get even better. The receiving core, of course, is really good, and it's probably going to look even better. They're probably going to play even longer this upcoming week. The running back room is really good. They're really solid. A lot of veterans. There's just not really a whole lot to question with the Steelers as far as preseason is concerned. There are a lot of, camp battles still for roster positions, but I don't care which string you're looking at, first, second, or third, it's pretty solid all the way around. It's either rookies that we are expecting to do well or to take a look at, I should say, coming into preseason, or veterans that we expect to at least have a pretty competent level of competition. The Jaguars, on the other hand, really good starters, obviously. Trevor Lawrence is out there. Etienne's going to be out there. You're going to have some really good players, and I think that they probably do have a good start here. But that's pretty much it. Once those guys leave the field, there's really not a whole lot of depth behind them on the Jaguar side of the ball. I wouldn't be surprised if they win the first quarter, first half, even maybe lead going into the third quarter. But I just don't see them being able to hold on to the lead any longer than that, with the Steelers just having the depth that they do. Plus, you're going to give me 3.5 points to take the Steelers in a game where, again, Mike Tomlin is a 60% win rate in the preseason. The Jaguars, or I should say Doug Peterson, because this is his first year as a head coach with the Jaguars, is now officially 8-9 because he lost last week. So he is, under 500. It's not huge. He's not one of these coaches that actively goes out of his way to lose the preseason, but he's not somebody who's trying to win either. So anytime you have that mindset of hey, I could win, I could lose, it doesn't matter, and you're going up against a guy who's really thinking that these wins are going to matter, that he's setting the tone for his team, give me the coach who's trying to set that tone. The Steelers plus the points, plus 3.5. Again, for pretty much the same reasons, I'm taking the Browns. So that's another pick. Last pick here, and this is really going to be more of a bonus pick. I do want to talk about the Bengals for a second. I really do like the Giants in this game. They started off as minus 3-point favorites before I could even grab them. I was trying to do at least some research before I took the points out them. The line moved. The Bengals are another bet against team, as I said earlier. So I wouldn't touch them now, but just know that that's probably going to go the way that the Giants are hoping it will. The Ravens, Cardinals, like I said, this one opened up at Ravens -4. It's all the way to 6.5. So another game where we're expecting the Ravens to win, but the value has been pretty much sucked out of that one. For me, this Jets-Falcons is the next one to go with, and this is another one where almost the exact same thing I've been saying with all of these teams. The Jets are another bet-on team. Robert Saleh, again, is 3-0-1. Great coach in the preseason, really wants to win these games. The Falcons are 1-3 with Arthur Smith, so not looking too great. They are playing in New York. Now, obviously, this line has increased mainly because of the injury to Zach Wilson. So I believe it was plus 1.5 to start off with, and then it went to +2, and it went to +2.5 just a couple hours ago. So the line has been going towards the Jets, so this is probably the only one that I'm going to give you here where the line hasn't moved against you yet, so you maybe have some time, and it may even keep going in your direction if you want to wait a little bit longer. The more and more talk you get about Zach Wilson being out, the more and more people look at Falcons winning last week. You're going to get, hopefully, that extra half point we're looking for to get to the +3. If not, the 2.5 is fine with me as well. I actually kind of split my wager on them between the points and the money line. The money line at 111 in some place. Obviously, here at my bookie, some other places you can get it at the plus 120. So again, I split it. It's up to you which way you want to go with that. But again, very similar, rationale, reasoning. Salah cares, and Arthur Smith doesn't really give a damn with the Falcons as far as I'm winning or not. The Falcons won their last game. They did lose Drake London, at least for right now. It seems like he's going to be able to play for week 1, but I would not be surprised if that maybe kind of forces Smith to take his foot off the gas a little bit, wanting to save some of his players from getting injured. Their starting squad is not great, so their backups or reserves or guys that are going to play in the preseason are even less, stellar. So just not really a whole lot to love on that Falcons team. The Jets, again, Joe Flacco most likely going to start this game. Same thing I was saying earlier. He's just a competent veteran, nothing more, nothing less. I think he's going to be fine. You have a great receiving core. Guys like Elijah Moore are still kind of rounding into form. It's still only his second year. They're still playing him. You still have guys like Corey Davis out there who are, again, just solid veterans who are going to go out there. They're going to look good against these guys who may not be in the league, at the start of the regular season. You have guys like Breece Hall that are going to come out. Breece Hall may make a statement with this game. I wouldn't be surprised because the Falcons traditionally have been really bad against running backs, especially running backs who can, hit the outside pretty good. Breece Hall is exactly that guy, and I would not be surprised to see him come out here, especially with an injury to Zach Wilson, and just let Salah give Hall the ball and let him get a couple of really good plays in there, look really good, make a statement, and get the hell out. Michael Carter's still there. They still have really good running backs, really good receivers, really good defense, just really good, solid defensive line everywhere across the field. For preseason, this team is very solid, and I need to make that distinction because it sounds like I'm really hyping up these teams. Please do not hear what I am not saying. These are not great teams for the regular season. This is strictly for preseason football. This is teams that are going to be playing their veterans that we should have at least some faith in as far as stability goes, and that should look good against guys who, like I said, may not be in the league in 3 weeks. Guys who are, second, third, fourth, fifth stringers, practice squad guys going up against legitimate starters in the NFL or maybe just immediate backups in the NFL. So I'm going to give the lean to the Jets here. Like I said, I'm taking the points with them. Those are the picks, guys. So that's what we're looking at. I'll recap everything in the comments below. We'll put the affiliate links below. We're almost there. We're getting close to NFL season. We have all of about 3 weeks left now before the actual kickoff gets here. One thing that I did mention in the podcast I just put up this morning that I have not talked about on the channel, the line for the Rams has continued to move. We got it at +1 like a couple weeks ago. It's continued to move. It went to +1.5. It's now all the way up to +2.5 because of Matt Stafford's elbow news or issue or whatever. I don't mind it, actually. I'm kind of happy it is going that way. I grabbed it again. I actually bought the hook up to the +3, so I put another quarter of a unit down on the Rams +3. It's very rare that I do plus anything more than a unit on a particular play, but I usually don't have line value open up like this. So if you want to follow me on that one, I'm also taking the Rams +3 for week 1 against the Bills. We've discussed that at length over the summer, but that's just something else I wanted to update you guys on. So like I said, if you have any questions, any concerns, let us know in the comments below. If there is something you'd like me to go over, a game you want me to review, same thing, put it in the comments, let me know what's going on. And then lastly, like I said, I'll recap all the picks and all the info in the comments as well. I'll pin it to the top. So thanks again, guys. Thanks for listening. Please follow me on Twitter if you don't already at AG_sports21. Find the podcast, NFL Nuggets, and we'll talk again soon. Have a good day. Good luck.